Okay, well, we're talking about ways to reach out effectively. And you touched on something, both of you, very important. I mean, everyone wants an event, if it's a fundraiser, to make money. But there are other things that are important, like education, reaching out to the communities being plural, that are out there, as effectively as we can. So what can we do that allows us to educate and reach people and allows us to raise the money we need outside of doing things in bars, which involves alcohol, which excludes youth, outside of doing things that don't provide the education because it's just too much of a party? I think we can do both. I've seen things that do both.
To raise money and educate?
And to
kinda
also
like-
reach out to people in a broader spectrum.
Like, I try to sneak it in, like, even with the rallies, like, people show up to the rallies, but they're not going to do anything else. Like, you know, like, you could take it further, but nobody does. That's why, like, I try to have the parties, and then I'll try to sneak in some education. Just, you just got to sneak it in on people.
Wasn't there a way we can bring together all that with adults as well, who are allies, and have booths and information as well as having fun, and do it that we incorporate all those things together?
Yeah, like, that's what Pride's supposed to be about, right? But it's not anymore, I guess.
I noticed, I mean, maybe...
Funny, you should say that.
Yes, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Joe.
Well, I mean, I noticed, you know,
Yeah.
being the generation I come from and as old as I am, different prides you go to, you see different kinds of atmospheres. I know at San
Yeah.
Francisco Pride, they have a whole section where they have youth get up on
That's
stage.
awesome.
And they have a whole section that talks about Stonewall and the history,
Yeah.
as well as all the booths and all the flogging stuff and the adult
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And they have places where people can drink, but they also have places that are devoted just to history. They have places that
Amazing.
celebrate all the different aspects, trans, dyke, everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that maybe they're less commercially concerned, a little more diversified.
Yeah, I think that's also been my experience, my very, very small, short experience. But I think that's something that we're sort of, like some of those problems that we're trying to tackle with Hollywood Youth Pride is like making sure that the needs of, like the majority of the needs of the youth in this area are like have access to materials, resources, information, people that they can like then sort of grow their own communities, like learn how to build them, learn like what's important, learn that like serving your community is the most important thing, not necessarily having funding to do that. Like funding is important, but it's not the main priority before you organize. I think that we like need to really like recognize that once our community falls apart, so then to like other things, you know, like meaning like yeah, like the youth community falls apart, which I think that it really is lacking in a lot of ways, then like they won't be able to organize as adults.
I think, well, you know, I think that maybe a lot of this has to do with who's in charge. I mean, you're talking about representation. I mean, I've been to a couple of panels myself in different places without mentioning names. And what do you think about the representation in LA in particular in terms of who is organizing and who's in control of organizing what we do in terms of connecting with people? Do you see a lot of representation that is diversified in terms of not just youth, but specifically with youth, gender, racial, all the stuff? What do
Yeah.
you see in LA?
I don't know. I don't really understand how they're organizing in LA. Like, I've been hanging out in the Bay, and it seems to be a lot more queer dominated. Like, they seem to be representing themselves a lot more in the community. It's not just like a small little part of town, and they're just like standing up for their rights and actually doing stuff.
What do you see that's different between them and what you see?
Nobody's really doing anything here but partying. You know, they're not really taking the active role and stepping up. Like, I remember the Silver Lake rally, the cops showed up and everybody just went home. I was like, or they just went to the bar. Just like, you're really just gonna walk away?
Yeah.
Like,
Sorry.
oh,
go ahead.
I'm done.
I was just saying that, like, it has been my experience. I've, like, attended a couple of, like, lectures or panels and found that, like, our Los Angeles community was not well represented and, like, actually had what I saw as, like, token persons, like one, you know, genderqueer identified individual or, like two, like...
Go ahead, say it.
Yeah, racial, like, minorities as, like, speaking, like, country-wise, but, like, clearly the majority in Los Angeles. And I think that's, like, really awful and sickening for them to not be well represented, like, for the population to be represented by, like, 40 to like 70-something white,
Yeah.
gay, identified, like cisgendered men is not necessarily okay. And that's something that like I think we're definitely trying to change as well. I've actually received a number of emails asking how inclusive Hollywood Youth Pride will be. But something that's also really difficult is to make it appealing until we get a lot of support to other people, because a lot of the like lesser-known, smaller organizations don't have the money, don't have the time to take away from their projects that are already underway. So that may be something that we have to wait until the last minute to feel like they're being well represented. But I think that that's really important because we have access to like so many different amazing like activists and folks here that it's not acceptable that they're not represented well.
And you have MCC Church in the Valley, which is here to give you a voice.
Excellent.
And I think you're hitting on a strong point. It really is difficult, and I have no problem being someone who's 2 years from being a 50-something. I identify as a Latin. Yeah, but most people who live with me say that he's white. But I identify as Latin, and gay man approaching his 50s. But yeah, you know, if you have panels that are people my age, predominantly white, with economic situation where they're pretty well heeled, I don't see the representation myself. And what you're telling me just validates for me that when people are asking you about how inclusive things are going to be and they're interested, they want and they desire that inclusiveness.
Yes.
They're saying, we really are hoping that you're going to be the option because it's not out here right now.
Absolutely.
And it's just finding a place that's going to give you that publicity, because people with money have the power to campaign and market.
Yes.
But you also, when you have a community behind you, you have that power just finding the right venues that'll give you that support.
Yep.
This is one of them. MCC is one of them. There's others. There's Friends of Project 10. People I've worked with, Hollywood Youth Pride. I think the grassroots organizations are great. There's City X1.
Yes.
Carlos Sosa.
Wonderful organization.
Yes, and who thinks very highly of yours. And so there are people out there.